Welcome in, Buster. How are you?
What's going on? Well, at the moment, I'm cold. I came back here for one day in Montana, and it is 14 degrees. It's below zero wind chill factor, and we have 3 inches of snow. So
My
it's
gosh.
Wow.
yeah.
It's funny, Buster. We went up to Bozeman a couple of years ago. So my little man keeps Bozeman weather on his phone. And he told me the other night, he's like, do you know how cold it's going to be in Bozeman this week? And I'm like, no, tell me about it. And he was saying the same thing. I don't know if you're close to Bozeman. That's a big-ass state. But it's an awesome state, too.
Yeah, I live in Bozeman. That's
Okay, there you go.
So I know exactly what he's talking about. Yeah, it's I know this. My partner Liz, she's not going to be happy when I roll out of town for a World Series. It's going to go through Texas and Arizona. This is going on here.
Send pictures.
Hey, did anyone have – now, there were people –
No.
Yeah, okay.
Nope.
Okay.
No. I've been saying, forgive me if I said this to you guys last week, but I really believe this. That, every time a team wins a championship, we listen to the athletes, the coaches say, no one believed in us. No one thought we would be here. And we got through it. And they could be the biggest prohibitive favorite ever. And they'll still say that. Well, this is the first time in sports history this is actually true. Nobody thought the Diamondbacks had a chance to get through the Milwaukee Brewers and then the Dodgers and then the Phillies, who, as we started out, I think they clearly became the favorite to win, and the idea that the Diamondbacks are in the World Series, a total shock, and let alone playing against the Texas Rangers, who also are another wild card team going into it. The other night I was part of the coverage that we had with the Rangers and the Astros, and I was in the Astros clubhouse, and Justin Verlander was talking about how baseball is just different than the other sports. He said a lot of times the best talent manifests in the NBA and in the NFL. He said, but in baseball, besides the rounds, it's a long season. Guys gets hurt. Starting pitchers get hot. That sort of thing. And that's how we wind up here. The NCAA tournament is probably the closest thing to the baseball season, where there are just so many opportunities for the favorites to get knocked off, and that's what's happened this year.
So for the Diamondbacks to continue this, what is the key? I mean, if you want to just really go all in on the underdog here, what do the Diamondbacks have to do?
Well, I am going to be curious to see about their ability to run in this series. This is the team that was second in the majors this year in stolen bases. They've got Corbin Carroll. Other guys in that team are really good at running. Their first base coach, Dave McKay, is known as the best base running coach in the game. He understands, nuances and tendencies. So I think that if they're going to beat Texas, it's going to be through the running game. And history shows that you can run on Nathan Eovaldi, and you can run on Jordan Montgomery a little bit, the left-hander who I assume is going to start game 2 for them. And, Max Scherzer will start game 3, but as we saw in his 2 starts in the American League Championship Series, he may not be around that long. I think the Diamondbacks will be able to put the runners in action in this series.
So, Buster, I fell in love with Major League Baseball in the early 80s. And after watching Game 7 the other night, I was thinking about Bruce Bochy. And I think, I guess you can make an argument for Tony La Russa, but since I've been a baseball fan, Bruce Bochy may be the best manager that I've ever seen. Is that fair? I mean, Tony La Russa.
Joe Torre.
I saw a little bit of Sparky Anderson. Joe Torre had so much to play with. That's like Phil Jackson. I will never consider Phil Jackson. He was great at being able to balance egos, but I can't say he's the greatest coach of all time because of the talent he had.
That's interesting. It's an interesting question. And I've known Boch forever. When he was first hired as a manager for the San Diego Padres, I wrote the story for the San Diego Union Tribune. And he's got it up on his wall in his mother's house. His mother has it there. And I'll never forget that day when I talked to Randy Smith, the general manager who hired him for that first job. I said, why do you think this guy is going to be a great manager? He said, because he's not afraid. And boy, we've seen that play out. And he talked about how Boch is so good at getting along with players. He has this great sense of humor, makes fun of how big his head is, will joke around with the players. But in the game, he will make decisions that he believes are best to win in that moment. And we've seen it play out with Scherzer. Like, he believes in Max's history. He believes in how competitive he is and how hard he's trying. And if his stuff isn't there in Game 7, you know what he did? He yanked him out of there. And he did that with the Giants. He put Barry Zito in 2010. They took him off the roster in 2012 when he was throwing better. He gave him the ball and he gave him some good starts. He's so good, I think, at having urgency in a moment. In fact, in Game 7, and look, I love Dusty Baker. I thought that Dusty during the game made a lot of mistakes. He was slower in some of his moves, where Bochy just seems on top of everything. One Hall of Famer I talked to last week said to me that when Bochy's managing a game, you know this, it's going to be the players who decide it, not a manager making a mistake.
What went wrong for the Phillies? It's the first time we've talked to you since they fell apart. What went wrong for the Phillies in this series?
Well, one thing for sure, I think that if you're looking for common denominators and success, Brent Strom, the pitching coach of the Diamondbacks, used to be the pitching coach of the Houston Astros. The way the Diamondbacks pitched to the Philadelphia hitters through the course of that series, making adjustments, was excellent. But I also think that by the time we got to Game 6 and 7, all that amazing energy that we talked about with the fans in Citizens Bank Park, that energy turned on the players. Not to say that the fans were booing, but man, you could just feel the Phillies players understanding that they potentially would let this incredible opportunity get away from them to win this World Series when they were the favorites. That seemed to manifest in their plate appearances, where it felt like every guy coming to the plate was trying to hit a home run. And that's, out of the desire to want to win. So I think that the excitement, the anticipation, the confidence really turned into, internal pressure for a lot of the players as that series played out, because they were prohibitive favorites and they knew what everyone thought, that they should beat this team, and they felt that way too.
ESPN's Buster Olney is with us on the eve of the World Series starting. Texas and Arizona. He's about to hit the road there. He is with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Buster joins us throughout the season, courtesy of MyBookie.ag. Still got that 110% sign-on bonus, free money from MyBookie.ag. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. MyBookie.ag, code next round. MyBookie.ag, code next round. Where does Marte's record of 16 consecutive games with a postseason hit rank in remarkable records to you? Because I find that astounding. I know it's only by one game the record. Marquise Grissom had 15. But that is remarkable. You could go 16 consecutive postseason games with a hit to me.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the consistency, and also in this day and age, you see so many pitchers, right?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how many pitchers that record it covers, but it's got to be an enormous number. It reminds me of the record that Roberto Clemente had. He played in 14 World Series games. He played in all 7 games in 1960, played in all 7 games in 1971. He got a hit in every single game that he played in the World Series. That was pretty remarkable, but it's up there. And boy, by the end of that series, it felt like if you were sitting in the Philadelphia dugout, you just feared the plate appearances from him and from Corbin Carroll.
2 weeks ago we had you on, we were breaking down the NLDS, and you said Phillies locker room is great, Braves locker room is great, Dodgers locker room is great. They all love each other. I really don't know much about the Diamondbacks because I haven't covered them as much. What have you learned from that point to now about this Diamondbacks clubhouse?
That, first off, I think they take their lead from Corbin Carroll, who is such a, he's a unique young player in that he is so understated. If you guys ever, have a chance to talk to him, you'll find that when you ask him a question there, you get that pause at the end of your question, so much so that you wonder if he heard your question. And it reminds me a lot of Aaron Judge. And then what you realize is he's actually thinking about your question and thinking of something thoughtful to say. And that's pretty cool. And that's kind of how he plays. Like, he's someone who's so invested in learning. During the pandemic, when baseball was shut down, he took classes at Arizona State, if I remember the school correctly. And it was not because he was building toward a degree. He was just interested in the classes. He wanted to do something with his mind. Really smart guy. And I think the clubhouse reflects them a little bit, and they're still finding their identity. And I do think that a lot of the the cohesion within that organization stems from the relationship between Mike Hazen, head of baseball operations, and Torey Lovello, their manager. And I'm sure you guys have heard about the story. Mike Hazen's wife died of brain cancer a year and a half ago. He has 4 sons that are all teenagers. And those guys, Torey and Mike, are really close, and they supported each other. Everything you heard about the organization and the way that they supported Mike as he and his boys went through that, just remarkable. It's why part of me is really happy for that group of people that they were able to have the success. You probably saw that scene during the last round of playoffs where the 4 sons were throwing out the first pitch together. Really cool how the organization bannered around Mike Hazen.